हेलो, आज आवाज आ रही मेरी?
Yes, sir, you are audible, sir.
हेलो,
Yes, sir, आपकी आवाज आ रही है, सर.
10 मिनट में थोड़ा तेज कर लेता हूँ, मुझे वॉइस थोड़ी कम आ रही है। एक सेकंड। ठीक है। Good afternoon, everyone. So today we are going to see certain provisions of CrPC, which some of you may be aware and some may not, because I'm going to discuss one of the important provisions of CrPC, which talks about preventive measures in the criminal procedure code. See, what is the purpose of Indian Penal Code? Can somebody tell me or explain to me what is the purpose of IPC, Indian Penal Code? होता है वो क्या होता है कि एक बोल रहा है, somebody is presenting and then it goes on, come up मोनोलॉग चलता रहता है तो फिर उसका कोई फायदा नहीं होगा। सो ये बताइए कि व्हाट इज द पर्पस ऑफ आईबीसी, आईबीसी निकलना मेरे मुंह से, आईपीसी, इंडियन पेनल कोड। अगर नहीं बोलोगे तो फिर मैं नाम लेके बोलूंगा तो फिर देन इट विल बी डिफिकल्ट फॉर यू टू आंसर। You can speak, Amisha. You don't need to type.
Providing some sort of a uniform code that is valid across the country for all criminal matters.
You're not. I'm not sure whether it's my problem, laptop problem, or other. आपकी वॉइस थोड़ा धीमे आ रही है. You can speak bit louder.
Providing a uniform code that is valid across the country, across all people, whether they belong to any religion or whatsoever, which governs in all criminal
पन्नास तुम लोगों
matters.
को वॉइस आ रही है साफ या पन्नास के बजाय ब्रिजभूषण?
Yes, sir.
साफ.
We can hear you properly, sir. We can hear you properly, sir.
नहीं, मेरा नहीं, अमीशा अभी बोल रही है.
सर इनकी आवाज थोड़ी सी सर कुछ उसमें कुछ प्रॉब्लम है सर.
Yes, sir, वो एक्चुअली
मुझे भी मेरा यहाँ पे
बोल
फुल
रही
है
है सर, तो मैंने बोल दिया थोड़ा सा लाउड बोलने के लिए.
नहीं, एक मिनट, यहाँ पे भी मेरे को ना, जस्ट अ मिनट.
ओके सर.
सर देयर इज सम डिस्टरबेंस
एक मिनट, try to connect it with the Bluetooth if you can possible. now Amisha, better होगा.
Am I audible, sir?
I'll connect in a minute. Let me disconnect and I'll join. Okay. So Vishbhushan, जरा से कुछ बोलो मेरे को थोड़ा
Yes,
सा
sir. Yes, sir.
हाँ, now it's much better. ठीक है अमीशा,
Sir,
you were
even we
answering
can
something.
hear you properly, sir.
हाँ, I think मेरा Bluetooth से connect था and then I disconnected it. Then another issues were there. So ठीक है, perfectly fine. So Amisha, you were answering to my question. Why?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Sir,
Now
I
it's better.
think Indian Penal Code is like it is a uniform code which is valid all across the country, whether a person belongs to any, like across all divides of the country, across all cultures or anything. Just like if we see family laws in the country, they are a little different across religions, but criminal Indian Penal Code and something like CrPC, these are codes that are valid all across the country to govern all criminal matters. Indian Penal Code tells us what is the punishment and for what offense what is the punishment, and similarly CRPC on the other hand tells us the process for enforcing all of that punishment.
Okay, right. So, uh, see as Misha has already told you, we have a certain law known as Indian Penal Code. It talks about, punishment in case somebody commits a crime, or not only just committing the crime, but also if there is a duty which is assigned to a particular person and he does not perform his duty with diligence, with honesty, then there are certain provisions also which also deals with the penal provisions in case a public official doesn't perform his duty. And this performance based or performance related punishment is not limited to the public officials only. It also covers individuals. For example, during the pandemic time, you have seen that there were a lot of notification from the state government as well as the central government. If we can categorize, it was more like do's and don'ts. And if you let's say venture out during the time period where no movement was allowed, then you can be booked under sections like 187, 188 of IPC, and then you can be prosecuted. So those things you should also keep in mind when we talk about criminal law. Criminal law's purpose is not only just to punish the individuals, but also there is a certain uh, provisions which also deal with the deterrence, so that people don't commit the crime. Second is also uh, a portion talks about preventive nature of the penal codes. So when we talk about preventive as steps which are required to, basically why we need preventive steps, so there has been a lot of focus on um, the preventive steps in the various domains. ठीक है, बहुत बार ऐसी बात होती है, everybody talks that prevention is always better than cure. So today in lecture, and I don't think it will be finished in one lecture because we'll be taking more lectures and according to my availability and the timings. But for next week also, we'll be focusing on the preventive provisions in the criminal procedure code. Because when we talk about preventive steps, so we are talking about certain actions, and actions comes from the procedural law. Got my point? What I'm trying to say is IPC, Indian Penal Code, or Prevention of Corruption Act and NDPS Act, which are substantiative piece of legislations, talks about the the penalties, punishment, those things. Procedural aspects talks about how a public authority, a court of justice, and the prosecution and defense will play their role and try to find out who is the culprit, and if this case is proved beyond reasonable doubt, then those individuals can be prosecuted under the certain laws. Uh, so now here in CRPC, there are certain provisions which talks about preventive steps an authority, a public authority, can take to prevent occurring of a crime, to prevent occurring of a incident which can disturb the peace of the society. Okay. So these are very important because, in present scenarios, every time you hear that, there's a lot of public disturbance, there's a lot of cases of riots, those things. So, these sections are now become very important. And I think as a lawyer also, as a student also, you may face a lot of challenges and the problems in your daily life or in your neighborhood. So these provisions will help you to guide the individuals who come to you for any advice or suggestions. So we'll be talking about, we'll try to cover certain preventive measures which are being listed in the criminal procedure code. And I request all of you either to buy a criminal manual, okay, or criminal manual is always handy. Okay? You can have a criminal manual which contains CrPC, IPC, and Indian Evidence Act, and you can always use that as a reference manual. Second, I'll also, if you are not able to, purchase it, you can download the different bylaws. So because bylaws are the key. Okay, you can refer at a later stage the commentaries and the textbook, but the real crux or the real law comes from the bylaws only. What is written, what is the importance of comma, full stop, what is the meaning of the words that has been used in a particular statute. So those things you should always look for it and try to connect it with the other provisions. For example, when you read CrPC, try to connect the IPC, Indian Evidence Act as well, the terms that has been used. So in this preventive uh, the preventive natures of the CrPC, we will be discussing about certain chapters and which are very important. And I request all of you to please note it down also. And when you have a time, try to read it. Chapter 8, okay. Chapter 8 is also very important. Chapter 10 and chapter 11. Okay. So these are important chapters which talks about the preventive power of preventive provisions within the CrPC. Now, to start with, I will first refer to the preventive provisions of chapter basically 11, I'll say, and it talks about preventive action of police. Generally, I'm sure many of you have gone through the CrPC. There are certain cases where police can act in a suo moto manner, else it has to be guided by either the executive magistrate or by the judicial magistrate. So do you know the difference between the executive magistrate and judicial magistrate? ये executive magistrate और judicial magistrate का क्या difference होता है, कोई बताएगा? आयुष बताइए. तो अभी आप कोई नहीं बोल रहे तो फिर नाम लेके मैं बोलता हूँ. You tell me what is the difference between the judicial magistrate and executive magistrate?
Sir, I believe like we have DMs and ADMs in a city. They can be called executive magistrate, but then we have courts and there's it's a district judge and they will be called judicial magistrate for that city.
Yes, very true. And there are references in CrPC as well. अगर आप definition clause में जाएंगे और definition clause के बाद में construction of references और उसके बाद का जो chapter है जहाँ पे we have talked about a special magistrate, so we have special metropolitan magistrate, we have a special executive magistrate. So those chapters you can also refer to know what exactly I mean by executive magistrate and judicial magistrate. So as Sanjana ने बताया जैसे, so the executive magistrate are those who seldom perform any judicial function. I'm not saying that they don't, but some provisions are there where executive magistrate also perform the judicial function. But after this 1973 act, more or less the power has been separated, and they are basically either selected through the Union Public Service Commission (UPSC) or the State Public Service Commission. So many times also during a certain need, individuals can be also made an executive magistrate. For example, during the election time, you have heard the terms like sector magistrate. Okay, so where a public official is given magisterial power. So those are the executives who are being appointed by the state government and they do not perform as such a judicial function, but they are more into the executive side where they deal with the law and order. For example, law and order, revenue. These matters are being taken up by the executive magistrates. So generally, police is an arm of a state who are acting on the behalf of a state. Their main job is to prevent happening of any crime, and also the maintenance of a law and order. But they cannot suo motu act. Okay, they are either guided by the judicial magistrates or the judges, or by the executive magistrate. But exceptions are there. So exceptions, when you talk about exception, I'll say the chapter number 11 is an exception to that. Okay, here the police can act. Okay, and police can act before happening of any crime, and this crime is to be of a cognizable nature. Generally, it's of a cognizable nature. Cognizable, non-cognizable, तो आप लोगों ने पढ़ा होगा ना? Okay, पढ़ा है ना? Cognizable, non-cognizable.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
बताइए क्या है cognizable, non-cognizable? गूगल सर्च नहीं
Sir,
करना है, ठीक है?
cognizable offenses
One is
जिनमें
the state.
तुरंत actions लेना पड़ता होता है जैसे सर
अरे मेरे
आपका
को ये
मर्डर हो गया
बताओ, अच्छा लेट्स
हो गया।
फॉरगेट अबाउट सीआरपीसी में क्या कॉग्निजेबल नॉन कॉग्निजेबल के बारे में क्या पढ़ा है? डेफिनेशन क्लॉज पढ़ा है क्या?
Under cognizable,
Actually,
police
the
can
problem
arrest without a
I
warrant.
think is, huh? See,
Under cognizable offenses, police can arrest without a warrant.
so I request all of you at least do the plain reading यार, एक एक चैप्टर्स को पढ़ना शुरू करो, वरना फिर तो आप भूलते रहोगे और ना कुछ याद रहेगा, ठीक है? So अभी at least a definition clause, I think it's chapter 2, and chapter 2 आप लोग थोड़ा सा देखो, that's very important. So I'm talking about chapter 11. So it talks about preventive action of police. You can also refer your bylaws as well, sorry, their act as well. So this is also important in a sense that, you know, the police can act without any direction by the executive magistrates or the judicial magistrates. So it's more of a suo motu power जो आपको कहीं वैसे direct नहीं मिलेगा. Okay, and so section 149, police to prevent cognizable offense. So every police officer may interpose for the purpose of preventing and shall, to the best of his ability, prevent the commission of a. So it's more like, I'd say, introductory type of thing कि भाई आपकी responsibility है, every police officer की responsibility है कि कोई भी cognizable offense को होने से prevent करने के लिए. Second 150 also talks about information of design to commit cognizable offenses. So any person who gets an information, a police officer gets an information, so he is supposed to inform it to the higher ups, also to inform the individuals who are responsible for preventing of the happening of a crime in certain location. They have word use design. Okay, information of design. Design is very important term that has been used. यहाँ पे कहीं design आपको समझ में नहीं आएगा, लेकिन अगर आप इंडियन एविडेंस एक्ट में जाएंगे तो आई थिंक मेरे को I think it's section 10 of Indian Evidence Act talks about common design. Let me refer it, but I think it's a section number 10 which talks about common design. So it's very important for you to make a linkages, क्योंकि अभी क्या होगा ना कि आप yes, section 10, things said or done by the conspirator in reference to common design. See, अब अगर आप देखोगे ना, IPC में we have used the word common intention, we have also used word common object, but आप देखोगे ना कहीं पे भी common design use नहीं किया है IPC में, ठीक है? डिजाइन जो वर्ड यूज हुआ इंडियन एविडेंस एक्ट में हुआ है. So इंडियन एविडेंस एक्ट में क्या है कि एविडेंस का वो पता है कि लॉ में we need evidences to prove certain case. Now, common design is the term which has been used if you refer it. So in case there are a number of a person involved in a crime, so somebody who has done certain act and evidence come from a particular individuals, and if they have a common intention or the common object, so those evidences which has been collected can be used by using this principle of common design for prosecuting other officers as well, for other offenders as well, not officers but offenders as well. So एक थोड़ा सा समझने में कॉन्सेप्ट ना टाइम लग सकता है, लेकिन मैं थोड़ा एक्सप्लेन ये करना चाहता हूँ, बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट है and you need to concentrate on this. IPC में we have talked about common intention and common object. Okay, we have not referred any word like common design. Okay, now in Indian Evidence Act, we have section 10 talks about a common design. Okay, and so it says, let me read it. And things said or done by the conspirator in reference to common design, where there is a reasonable ground to believe that two or more persons have conspired together to commit a offense or anti-actionable wrong. Anything said or done or written by any of them person in reference to their common identification of the time when such intention was first entertained by any of them is relevant fact against each of the person believed so conspiring, as well as the purpose of proving the existence of conspiracy. ठीक है, अब पता नहीं कितने लोगों ने अच्छे से आईपीसी पढ़ा है या कॉमन इंटेंशन कॉमन डिजाइन पढ़ा है, बट कॉमन इंटेंशन कॉमन डिजाइन के बारे में थोड़ा सा मैं एक्सप्लेन करूंगा. बिफोर दैट आई जस्ट वांट टू नो हाउ मेनी ऑफ यू आर अवेयर व्हाट इज द कॉमन इंटेंशन. कॉमन इंटेंशन पता है क्या? अच्छा, नहीं भी पता है ना, सो यू डोंट नीड टू रिफर एनीथिंग. अभी जो दिमाग में आ रहा है वो बोल सकते हो.
तो कॉमन इंटेंशन यूजुअली जब कोई ग्रुप क्राइम कमिट करता है, हो सकता है कि पर्टिकुलर क्राइम का एक्ट किसी और ने किया हो, पर 3-4 लोगों ने वो चेन ऑफ इवेंट्स में किसी ना किसी तरह से ये जानते हुए कि इसका एंड रिजल्ट क्या होगा उस क्राइम को टेक प्लेस किया हो. समथिंग लाइक रॉबरी, जहाँ पे कोई और इंसान लुकआउट पे हो और रॉबरी अंदर हो रही हो, बट वो दोनों लोग कॉमन इंटेंशन के तहत ही उनको एक ही आईपीसी मतलब रॉबरी के लिए कन्विक्ट किया जा सकता है.
But how is different from the similar intention then? कॉमन इंटेंशन के लिए सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट इंग्रेडिएंट क्या है? आई मीन अगर मैं बोलूँ तो मतलब क्या है, क्योंकि 3-4 लोग मिलकर काम करते हैं, तो कॉमन इंटेंशन के लिए क्या बोलोगे? मतलब यू हैव टू प्रूव दैट यू नो इट्स अ केस ऑफ 34, सो व्हाट यू हैव टू प्रूव?
Sir, I'm not sure about that.
ओके, सो कॉमन इंटेंशन के लिए सबसे जरूरी होता है जो मैं 2 मिनट लूंगा, सबसे पूछता हूँ किसी को कुछ. अगर साहिल आप बताइए, आपने कुछ पढ़ा है आईपीसी इंडियन पिनल कोड? पढ़ा तो होगा, फाइनल ईयर में हो ना?
कॉमन इंटेंशन के बारे में पढ़ा सेक्शन 34 के बारे में, बट वैसे भी सिमिलर इंटेंशन तो आईपीसी में कहीं पे उसकी डेफिनेशन तो है नहीं. मतलब सिमिलर इंटेंशन की वो डेफिनेशन कहीं पे नहीं है आईपीसी में, जैसे कॉमन इंटेंशन.
नहीं, कॉमन इंटेंशन क्या है वही मैं पूछ रहा हूँ. व्हेन वी से द कॉमन इंटेंशन, सो व्हाट इज एन इम्पोर्टेंट इंग्रेडिएंट ऑफ अ केस टू बी प्रूव्ड एज अ केस ऑफ अ कॉमन इंटेंशन?
सर जॉइंट लायबिलिटी के केस में होती है कॉमन
नहीं,
इंटेंशन.
तो जॉइंट लायबिलिटी तो उसका एंड रिजल्ट होगा भाई. कॉमन इंटेंशन है तो जॉइंट लायबिलिटी तो होगी ही होगी. हमेशा
Sir, I think common intention में it is needed that पहले like when we are establishing criminal offense, we talk about actus reus and mens rea. तो common intention में mens rea exist करना important है.
मेंसिरिया
Like,
इम्पोर्टेंट है, बट मेंसिरिया के लिए
common
एक इम्पोर्टेंट टर्म यूज किया गया है. अगर जो एक टर्म यूज किया गया है, देखो क्राइम में तो मेंसिरिया इम्पोर्टेंट होगा. एक्टस रियस एंड मेंसिरिया के बारे में तो मैं कल से पढ़ा ही होगा स्कूल में. बट व्हेन वी से एंड टॉक अबाउट कॉमन इंटेंशन, वी यूज द वर्ड मीटिंग ऑफ माइंड. देखो, मीटिंग ऑफ माइंड इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट एंड दिस डिफरेंशिएट कॉमन इंटेंशन फ्रॉम द सिमिलर इंटेंशन. मैं ये कह सकता हूँ कि आई कैन गिव एन एग्जांपल कि मैं हूँ एक्स वाई है, वो जेड को मारना चाहता है. ठीक है, जेड को मारना चाहता है और एक्स और वाई के दिमाग पहले मिलते हैं कि चलो हम जेड को मार देते हैं. तो यहाँ पे कॉमन इंटेंशन एक्स एंड वाई का डेवलप हो गया ना. अगर एक्स ने बोला हम मुझे मारना है, वाई ने भी बोला मुझे मारना है, बट इन दोनों के बीच की कोई मीटिंग ऑफ माइंड नहीं हुई, कोई प्लानिंग नहीं हुई, तो इन दोनों का इंटेंशन जो होगा सिमिलर इंटेंशन होगा. द इंटेंशन इज टू किल जेड, बट दे डोंट हैव अ मीटिंग ऑफ माइंड, एंड मीटिंग ऑफ माइंड कैन डेवलप एट अ स्पॉट. ठीक है, आप गए और आपका कोई मर्डर का मोटिव नहीं था, और लेकिन आपने वहां पहुंचते ही लड़ाई झगड़ा हो गया, तो अब ये हो गया, डिसाइड हो गया, मर्डर हो गया। एंड an important and this scenario, which is quite different from 1860 when the IPC started as such, drafting and all got completed. Uh, what is the difference? That your presence is not required. Your physical presence at the place of occurrence or the crime scene is not required. ठीक है, कैसे मैं बोल रहा हूँ कि अगर आपने मान लिया किसी को फोन पे गाइड कर रहे हो, फोन पे बात कर रहे हो, किसका मर्डर कर दो, यू आर गाइडिंग समबडी। ठीक है, आप मान लो, आई एम जस्ट गिविंग एन एग्जांपल, terrorist activities. Okay, if somebody, let's say from Pakistan, is guiding somebody in Jaipur to commit a crime, okay, so वहाँ physically तो वो present नहीं है, but he is guiding, no? So वहाँ पे दोनों को common intention develop होता है, और वहाँ पे crime commit होता है, actors भी है, not necessary that every party has to act, but act in a physical way. So those things are very important, and if you go into the practice or go into the judiciary also, you'll find that in all the cases you either there is a presence of section 34 or section 149 common object. Common object, common intention का एक तरीके से एक अलग ही रूप है, ठीक है, because intentions lead to the certain motives. Okay, so those things are connected. In one class I'll basically discuss in detail about the common object, common intention, but for today's purpose, let me pause it here, and I'll try to connect with the common design. से क्या होता है कि अगर मान लो 4-5 लोगों ने कमिट किया क्राइम, तो उनको प्रोसिक्यूट करने के लिए आप कोर्ट में लेके जाएंगे, एंड फॉर एवरी प्रोसिक्यूशन, फॉर प्रोसिक्यूटिंग दोज इंडिविजुअल्स, the prosecuting officer or the complainant lawyer has to tender certain evidences to the court and prove the case beyond reasonable doubt. Now how this can happen? This can happen only in one case, that you have evidences against all. Now there is a case where somebody is not involved in killing the individual, but वो वहाँ पे गार्ड जो था ना, गार्ड सब बस बैंक रॉबरी में, अब एक बंदा खड़ा हो गया बैंक के गेट पे और वहां देख रहा है कि पुलिस आ रही कि नहीं आ रही, एंड देयर आर 2 पर्सन हु आर इनसाइड द बैंक एंड कमिटिंग द रॉबरी नाउ, एंड दिस पर्सन who is committing a robbery is having a gun. Now after they commit the robbery, they run away, and this person who was having the gun get caught by the police, and police ने रिकवरी दिखाई उस गन की जो वहां यूज की गई। अब ये जो हुआ ना, उसकी रिकवरी तो भाई इनसे हुई, रिकवरी समझ लीजिए XYZ में से X से हुई, हाउ इट कैन बी यूज्ड अगेंस्ट द Z who was there in guarding the gate? So in that case, this section 10 plays very important role. It talks about common design. तो common design को ऐसे कनेक्ट करेंगे, तो जब वो जो गन की रिकवरी हुई, गन के रिकवरी के एविडेंसेस कैन बी यूज्ड not only against the person who who fired in a bank, but also those individuals who were guarding it outside the bank. So those things are very important to understand the nature of the criminal prosecution as well as the defense side. So आप ना जब भी पढ़ो तो उसको कनेक्ट करने की कोशिश करो, वरना कनेक्शन बड़ा मुश्किल हो जाता है. So, and I'll try to take a class on this common intention, common object, and common design. So coming to this preventive step, and this is a section, sorry, chapter 11. There are 3-4 sections. I request all of you to go through it. Basically, 149 to 153, and these provisions are important in a way that police can suo motu act without getting any directions from the executive magistrate or the judicial magistrate. Then I'll say that's a very important is chapter 10. Chapter 10 is very important because chapter 10 में there are certain sections which we face in our daily life. Okay, कभी कभी होता है, स्पेशली इन द शहरों में देखते होंगे ना, कभी कभी घर के बगल में काफी म्यूजिक चल रही है, या घर के बगल में किसी ने आग लगा दी है, धुआं हो रहा है, या किसी ने रोड ब्लॉक कर दी है, न्यूसेंस. So nuisance per se is not defined in the CrPC, but Indian Penal Code talks about a nuisance. Okay. So 133 is very important in a sense that it gives a magistrate a power to remove that nuisance, and more important is that decision taken by the magistrate cannot be challenged in a civil court. ठीक है, अगर आपने मान लिया कि कोई डिस्प्यूट है, लैंड डिस्प्यूट है, वाटर डिस्प्यूट है, कुछ भी है, जो एग्जीक्यूटिव मजिस्ट्रेट ने कोई डिसीजन ले लिया तो उसको चैलेंज नहीं कर सकते हैं सिविल कोर्ट में. दिस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. सो वी हैव another 7 minutes, so we can use another link. ना बीच में ब्रेक हो जाएगा. सो प्रहलाद, वो लिंक आप फिर से शेयर कर दो, सो विल रीजॉइन.
ओके सर, मैं अभी शेयर करता हूँ.